Hello, everybody. This is Evershade Gaming with Marcel, one of the members of the Soaring Ancients lab team. And we're here to have an interview this afternoon to talk about some of the different features of the book. And he's going to be sort of our guide as we walk through it to point out interesting tidbits, interesting design notes, maybe, as things were developed. And let's start right at the beginning.
That sounds like a plan.
I mean, you've got one of the more interesting army-specific rules in the game now, with the no gods, no kings. How did the team sort of decide on that? I know that's sort of background driven, but that's a pretty extreme, or not extreme, but a pretty interesting way to implement that background too.
Yeah, like we've started off with various designs and like ideas, and I think basically any of the designs that we had from the start didn't survive.
Mm.
Like it's one of these iterative designs where you're just starting somewhere and you start writing, brainstorming, and you're going to end up with something. And somewhere along the way, we start to think about the concept of leadership generally and where does it come from. And we quite quickly came back to the principle that certain ancients generally work together and are stronger together than as a team. And then we start to come up with crazy ideas like, okay, but why there's their character? Why is there commanding presence? And
Mm-hmm.
like you're seeing that theme as well going over in some other rules, for example, the communal bond rule, but we'll get to that later, where the characters don't really have that much of an influence. They're basically champions in a way
Mm-hmm.
where they're better than the others, but in the same, like they still fit into the rest of the community and are not worth more than the others of the community.
Yeah, maybe by merit and age and skill, they've developed as to be these either great warriors or kind of skillful tacticians like the skinks,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they don't hold themselves to any higher place.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the main drive where we all felt like, okay, but this is actually really fluffy. This really fits the background, and it's not something that hasn't been done. We've seen armies where you don't really have a BSB,
Mm-hmm.
but this hasn't been done. And then we continued and that like fine-tuned it and felt like, okay, but what if you just can play without any characters? And that's how we end up with the final draft of the rule and felt like, okay, this is actually something that could work maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been introduced in like the later stage of the design process. Actually,
Hmm.
it took us a while to get here.
Oh wow, okay, because it definitely impacts so much of the book, right? I mean, in terms of where you get your magic from, how you do get that's like how the discipline mechanics work. That's pretty interesting. It was towards the end of the process.
Yeah, definitely. I think things really got together in the end with ideas, and I think we're lucky that it actually aligned because it's
Mm-hmm.
the same with, for example, the Enclave Wizard rule. It's not something that happened from the beginning. This
Mm.
is, I think, playtesting 3, where we introduced a version of this,
Mm-hmm.
and then we fine-tuned it to playtesting 4, where
Mm.
we have which was the last playtesting version, and that actually lined up pretty well with the no character play style, or which
Mm-hmm.
isn't really a play style. Like it came along kind of during the
Yeah.
creation, of course, but like it quite fitted well because you could actually create a stable magic in some way without bringing a character, which
Mm-hmm.
just fitted really well.
Yeah, they fit together pretty well in that you can have no characters in this army, but you're not going to be worried about not having decent discipline, not having magic to be able to cast.
Yeah,
You're still playing in all the phases, but you could just be a characterless army.
yeah, definitely.
I feel like one of the so the a very interesting army specific rule, and the army model rules also are very telling too. The combined strength is pretty critical, and there's a lot of great instances of combined strength throughout the book.
I think this rule is going to be really the. We're going to see pretty quickly if this rule is something that's going to make it or break it.
Mm.
Um, It's I think this is one of the concepts we introduced very early in the process, where we
Hmm.
started looking, okay, what do we want to do with Caymans? What do we want to do with skinks in these combined units? And excuse me.
Yeah, because I guess from Legacy, they're one of the few armies that sort of did something like this.
Yeah, exactly. Like the rule was a legacy thing, and then we started thinking about it and felt like, okay, do we want to keep this? Do we want to do something else? Do we want to drop it? And I was like, but what if we just apply this for much more? Like we've been thinking about, like the Terrascudus, for example. It could be a war platform. It could be a character mount, even if you want to. What else could it do? Then like a crazy morning, I was like, okay, but what if we just put Caymans into Tegu warriors? And that's also
Mm.
kind of where like these different Cayman levels came from, for example,
Hmm.
because you have the 50 millimeter Caymans, you have the 40 millimeter Caymans,
Yep.
and like in that way, it fits the rule as well. Like not every entry has been created to fit the combined strength. It's the opposite, but it helped, of course, in the end, because you could fit the role in pretty well in this way and create these combinations in an interesting manner. And rather than having a very long and complex rule just for one entry, we felt like, but if you make this work for the whole army, then it's actually worth keeping rather than
Hmm.
having it just for the one entry.
Yeah, because it's probably one of the more lengthy rules we've seen in a while, and it is quite
I
complicated.
really, I really do not encourage anyone to create a rule like this because it's been
Yeah.
like a lot of people have been commenting on this where they are like, oh, but why don't you just ground the unit war platform, or
Mm,
why don't you
hmm.
just do this? And then the beast from RCT comes and it's like, okay, so these are all the loopholes you currently have, and this is what
Mm,
we gotta fix.
hmm.
And like we honestly started with just this one small sentence where it's like, okay, so the unit against war platforming can be placed anywhere in the unit
Yeah.
to, okay, so what if we actually start to cover all the loopholes and
Yep.
just clarifying everything, and then just happened.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think it works really well. And when I did my battle report, I tested a Carnosaur and a unit of Raptor Riders, and it was awesome. It was super cool. Like, there's a Carnosaur and Raptor Riders riding around together, taking down
yeah,
stuff. Like, that's great. Like,
yeah,
and I mean,
that's what you want to see when you play a dinosaur army, right?
yeah, oh yeah. And that's probably one of the easier circumstances because that unit can't take a champion or a banner, which I think was smart to make that you can't double banners or double champions.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and that's also something where we've been going back and forward. Do we want it? What are the implications? And just having banner upgrades and champion upgrades just complicates the rule quite a bit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because you add extra wound pools while having the same wound pool, and like you have to clarify that there's like two different champion pools, for
Yeah.
example.
It makes the balance of it
Yeah,
probably more difficult too.
you got to pick your fights, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's also why we came with the fight extra rank, because people felt in playtesting, okay, this rule might not always be worth it because you're paying
Mm.
extra points to just create one huge unit, and um, like it actually grants something. It
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that when you put this Caymans in a unit, that they actually have bigger reach, because that's what fight extra rank is supposed to
Mm-hmm.
represent, something that's like a horde army or something that has a reach. For
Mm-hmm.
example, that's why Spears gain their fighting extra rank, because they have reach, and Caymans over Tegu warriors or Caymans over Kings have reach because they're larger.
Yeah. They
So
know how
that's
to fight
also,
together.
yeah, exactly. So we really try to, with every decision we make, we really try to go back a step and think, okay, so what if we do this, and what are the implications for the background, and how does it fit with the background?
Mm-hmm.
So not everything is background driven, where we're like, okay, the background says this, so we have to design something for this. It's also like, okay, so this could be a cool rule. How can we fit this in the background and make it work?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, one of the big misunderstandings when people look at background driven design, because people sometimes say like, oh yeah, the background says this, so we had to design this. That's not really how it worked. Sometimes it's like, okay, is this something worth representing in the rules? Is it
Mm.
not something worth representing?
Because I
Um,
remember when the lab, which we'll see this a little bit later, but I remember when the lab sort of I'm trying to think what I guess when the first guidelines came out and there was like the theme about magnetism that came out. I remember people were like, WTF? Like I feel like people got
Dinosaur foot real guns.
I know. I feel like people got like really like not necessarily up in arms, but like maybe confused or like thought that was hilarious. Where I think it came through in this lab very softly in like some like nice places,
Yeah.
and in some well written rules too. So like I think sometimes when we see background things, we can sort of maybe put the cart before the horse or get a little too ahead of ourselves and think, oh, well, this is yeah, dinosaurs with railguns, but no, it's going to be the lodestone on for the Tegu warriors.
Yeah, like magnetism is of course divided in various branches. You have like the classic magnets, what we all know, things that are magnetic. So metal is magnetic in a certain way. And then you have the electromagnets where you have electricity powering something that creates a magnetic field. And that's two different things. And it was a very clear instruction there. No electromagnetism.
Yeah, no electromagnetism. So
Yeah.
communal bond is on every unit in the book, correct?
Not every.
Okay, almost all units.
I think we have. We have we have the two different caiman types. We have the Pteroscutus, the Carnosaur, the weapon beasts. They are and the swarms. They are 6 entries, which are going to be the guest models. And then the host units can be Tegu, Skink Warriors, Skink Hunters. So the 3 core units except the caimans. And then you have the Raptors, the Raptor Cavalry, the Tegu Guard. They can be the host units. So basically, every unit entry can be combined with something. It's just where, like the skirmishers, for example, like the birds, like there we kind of abstain from it because it would just be way too complex.
Yes.
And not always, it doesn't always make sense. But basically, all the rank and file models, there's some kind of way that you can
Combine them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's great to see it on different things, on new things, on all sorts of fun ways to bring units together in cool formations.
Yeah.
I think I was moving on to the communal bond, which is the models where they get the Swiss perform, they get the discipline test minimized, and then they get the rank and file commanding presence.
Yeah.
So I guess one of my biggest questions is how did the lab team sort of? I mean, I think we sort of touched on it a bit, but the discipline is a really new mechanic, and it has limitations, and it also has changed its emphasis, from characters to units.
Yeah. So here, discipline has been one of the most difficult things for us to design, and I'm pretty sure we're satisfied up to a point where we're convinced that this is okay to go to alpha. But I'm also convinced that this is most likely not the final version.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It would be really interesting to figure out what the community feedback is going to be on this, because like various factors, like the part with Swift Reform, I think we're quite convinced about. That was from the beginning something we all felt like, yeah, this is fitting. It really represents the lizards as like not being able to use sound in a similar way, or musicians in a similar way, which has advantages. It has disadvantages. It's cheaper because you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to parse it a bit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then basically looking into the guidelines, it said like, okay, so you are not allowed to have the same stable minimized leadership as you always had. So you got to do something with that. And then you start thinking and figuring out all these different ways how you can do that. And quickly you realize like, okay, nothing is good enough. kind of unfortunate, but it's that's sometimes how it works. Like you have things that work really well, and sometimes things that don't work as well. Um, and yeah, I think after a while we ended up with also the same thought process as for the No Gods No Kings. Like, okay, so where how does leadership work
Hmm.
within the army? And came to the point where like, okay, so units close to each other should actually be helping each other more than a character.
Mm.
And they start working and like, okay, but how can we restrict this? Do we want to restrict this to ranks? Do we want to restrict this to um, combined units? Do we
Mm.
want to do other ways? And like we ended up with scoring in the end, because as you might know, some rules or some things just have too many implications. Like ranks, for example, just makes it so difficult for some armies or
Mm.
for some lists to actually get some kind of how to say a leadership bubble.
Hmm.
Um, so this just felt for us the best up to this point, and then we'll just see where we go from here.
Yeah, because this, I mean, I got to, when I did my battle report, I actually played Soaring Ancients, which I don't normally play them, but somebody loaned me their army, and this came up in a couple interesting points where I actually got quite, like, fortunate. I had maintained my bubble, and I definitely wasn't a pro player or anything. What, like, both times it was completely on accident.
Mm.
Where one, it was a terror test from a Cyclops into some skink hunters, and if they hadn't been in range, um, they probably would have failed the terror test, and then it would have led a big Wildhorn unit get into the flank of my Raptor Riders and
Yeah,
my Carnosaur, which would have been terrible. And then the other time was I had charged some Cayman Warriors out, and I had my Alpha Carno trying to make a long charge, and the Alpha Carno failed, but the Cayman Warriors made it. They beat up some Centaurs, overran, and then it left my flank exposed to a couple long charges from some Minotaurs and from a big mongrel herd. And the Minotaurs failed, but the mongrel herd made it in, and they had a champ, so they had like combat. I think they had combat 7 coming in, like flank,
oh
big
yeah,
flank, like a 3 ranks banner, and I needed a minimized 5, and I was only minimized because I had a scoring unit of skink warriors just within 8 inches, like
yeah,
super close, and
yeah.
I made my minimized 5, which was huge because then I mean once you get through the
After that you
champion,
just start wrecking.
you just start chewing up mongrel.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but that I thought that's a big change. Where like something like an Alpha Carno before, where you could pretty much take it anywhere, and now it's maybe a little bit more dicey. You're almost a little bit more vulnerable to some of those discipline
yeah.
mechanics.
Also, the fact that they are friends, is just massive.
I think that was
Um,
appropriate change too. Friendly and fearless was appropriate.
yeah, that part I can touch on maybe later.
Mm-hmm.
But like one of the things that we probably will see a lot, for example, here is the chronophotocracy, because it's indirectly some kind of a loophole, which is it's something we are aware of because
Mm.
it triggers the minimized.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really fluffy within the army, but I mean, you got to give somewhere.
Yeah, there's
Like
got to
you
be
can't.
some sort of way to bend the
Yeah,
rules a little bit.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally, I think the rule really does what the intention is, at
Mm-hmm.
least, which I think is just really nice for the army. It really gives the feel of when one unit disappears in the center, the whole army might fall apart,
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
suddenly like they are all depending on each other, they're all communicating, and that's like the whole unit within range idea. So if they're close to each other, then they know to rely on each other, they're really efficient in communicating. But when one of
Mm-hmm.
those pieces falls away, it could create a catastrophic.
Yeah, could be a big vacuum. So,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, interesting. And then the Enclave Wizards too. So you said that was a recent addition to the lab.
Yeah, it came in the second half, basically, second half of playtesting. Like we started always to think about what the alternatives of, okay, so we have currently all these wizards on Palanquin, so
Hmm.
what should we do with that? Um, and at some point, I don't know where this came from exactly. Someone in the team came up with like, okay, but what if we just make them champions
Hmm.
and just make Wizard Enclaves kind of like the running theme and just remove the whole Skink Priest entry
Yeah.
or the Soaring Wizards for what the running name was for us. Because
Yeah.
we also felt like any kind of species should be able to be a wizard. So Cayman should be able to be a wizard, Tegu
Hmm.
should be able to be a wizard, Skink should be able to be a wizard. So we already had these designs where it was all general, and then to represent caimans or skinks, like you need a bigger base and smaller
Hmm.
bases. So in some way you need to make this work with the rules, and we had these platforms, and then that
Hmm.
could in some way be the way to represent it. It was just
Yeah,
very
it's.
messy.
I was gonna say it sounded like it could have either gotten really complicated, where I
Yeah,
actually felt like this Enclave
yeah,
Wizard is really simple in that
yeah,
it's just a champion, and it has some big ramifications in that like Tegu warriors can have a champion that can have access to shamanism, which gives you access to the attribute spell, which is like
yeah,
pretty big. But then again, it's just like one spell, right? So like if that spell is that big break magic base, just puts more of an emphasis on it for your
yeah,
opponent.
yeah.
Um, Whereas, yeah, if you had
Um,
all these different character entries, not only would that just be so bloated in the character section, but
yeah, it was never an option. It was just at that point we're just going to make the decision. Okay, let's just pick something here, or like we're saying here. Okay, yes, it's possible, but we decided not to do it because
mm-hmm,
it's just then you're gonna end up with three combat versions of the characters, and then three wizard versions of the characters, and then you have the NR, so you have seven character entries, and it's just
that's a
nobody's
lot.
waiting for that.
It's a
It is
lot, yeah.
unnecessary.
Where I actually thought the character section was very streamlined. It looks really nice with just the honor arc, the Tegu veteran, the Cayman. I'm not sure what he is. Cayman veteran or Cayman?
Kingdom Master, I think we're ended up with
Yeah,
now.
and then the skink veteran. I thought very simple. They had
Yeah.
like access to their mounts. Uh, yeah, I thought they looked really nice.
I think the nicest part of this rule as well is the base change, where we
Mm-hmm.
in some way can prevent model invalidation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
To keep the Skink Priest on Palanquin able to be used on 40 millimeters and on 50 millimeter bases.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not a Tegu wizard per se, at least the model is usable, which I think is nice. But it also opens up for new ways of modeling for people. Like you can actually create Tegu wizards now and
Yeah, you can.
for that. So
Yeah, I mean,
I
you have
think
a new Tegu Mystics whole little new unit that can do all
mhm.
that could be all sorts of very fun
Yeah,
modeling.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
I feel like the whole pack hunter prey scent and marking lure section and predator senses, or sorry, pack hunter's not involved in that. That's just the real charges. But that whole section like is a lot of rules, but it's a very simple mechanic of getting the reroll hits.
Yeah. So this is basically just streamlining in the same way as incendiary tokens are done. For
Mm-hmm.
example, when you look at the prey scent and the scent markers, um, we just felt it's just that it's a permanent marker rather than a usable marker, but it's being put on the unit in the same way
Mm-hmm.
as incendiary. So why not just copy it for the
Yeah.
sake of clarity? If people know how one works, they know how the other works.
Yeah, which I mean, it's great that you can. It's great that you like some units get this and mark it like right at
Yeah.
deployment, but then it's also cool that you can add some like some units have the ability to add more during the game.
Yeah, because you technically can play without any units putting markers on,
Mm-hmm.
but you just don't have that many markers. So it's just going to be okay. There's one target where you're
Yep.
where they're like they picked up a scent and that's what they're going
Mm-hmm.
after. Then you might be able to invest
Yeah.
points and units into getting extra markers, but I mean, you got to pay for it.
Yeah. And then maybe trying to run a bit more of a heavy, like running multiple Carnosaurs in the, um, that section of the book. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and here as well, it's kind of a similar rule from what we've had before.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Ramphanods have this rule where they get the D3 extra attacks
Yes.
um, and reroll to hit. Of course, adding in D3 extra attacks onto every single model seems a bit much.
Mm-hmm.
So we went with a simpler version of that, but also here again, just picking a rule, making it really fits the theme of the army. So why
Yep.
just not use it as inspiration and do something with it that affects more units?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we just moved it to this section and made it into something that I think is really defining these predators as ferocious beasts that can be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the lodestone was an interesting change too, especially since I feel like the offensive skill is quite low across the book. So this really helps a couple of units out be able to hit better, but then again, it's still restricted to armor 3 or more.
Yeah. Here also, like we try to streamline this as much as possible. We've had various versions here
Mm-hmm.
where which probably represented the rule a little bit better, but also created these really weird situations sometimes. And I think this is just a very decent, easy to understand rule. If you have arbitrary, it's
Yes,
just +1 to hit.
+1 to hit. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And
they
and it fills up a gap as well from the loss of Born Predator here, for example, for Sacred Warriors,
exactly. Yeah.
which is it's been commented on as a huge loss.
Mm.
We've seen and we've been discussing this a lot during the in the whole process. But do we really want to just stick to it because you got to do something, or do we accept that it's gone and compensate in some other way?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the lodestone rule is actually very interesting.
Yeah. How did you settle on this hereditary spell? Because I thought it was
Ooh.
very interesting, and to me, it seems like it's got some really great uses. It seems like a better hex than a buff. But I mean, +2 discipline is nice.
Yeah, this, like the hereditary, I think besides discipline has been the most difficult thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this vitalist theme within the
Yeah.
book, and
Yep.
and the hereditary is something that's supposed to represent the whole feel of the book,
Mm-hmm.
or the whole feel of the army. And we went through different iterations, and just adding another heal spell is just not done.
Mm.
Combine that with druidism is just okay. You gotta in some way limit it. You've seen Kingdom of Aquatine. It's going to do it. That same happened there. With their healing mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So here we basically sat down as a team and just said, okay, we are going to brainstorm. We're going to come up with the ideas, then we're going to rank them and just make a decision based on that.
Mm.
And in the end, we just felt like, okay, so something that produces damage is the best, and that's how we ended up with a rule that just is very simple. It
It
prevents
is.
damage and can happen on both sides.
Yes. Yeah.
But the whole idea here is that we, in some way, alter the belief or mindset of the enemy in believing, okay, we have to preserve life.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually, when they do less damage, they become braver and like believe in the cause, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, the vitalist team generally there is just really odd because how are you going to create a non-killing theme into a killing army?
Yes. In an army that's, or at least at this point, it's had to go to war. Right? It's had to go fight this battle, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
An army's been put together, so it has
Yeah.
to go do this fighting. Yeah.
So we kind of felt like, okay, so maybe we should look at it from a perspective where, okay, they're vitalists, but they want to preserve what they believe in. So their own life, their own society, and anyone trying to damage that, like, should still be punished in some way to preserve the story and life.
Yeah.
That's why I felt, okay, like, of course, they can still go to battle and defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably, one of the most fitting. Like we've been at these really weird ideas of, okay, so we can have a damage spell, but it's not a killing blow; it's a knockout blow, and we've gone through all of the ideas basically,
Yeah.
and just having very very long discussions about, okay, is this something we want to do or not? And and I mean, hereditary spells generally have been changing after release all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised if this might change again, if it's too good or if it's not too good. But I think time will tell there. We just need to get some information.
I love how simple this version of it is. I could almost see, like, you could almost change what you're minusing. Maybe, like, you have to reroll sixes or something like that. That could almost be an idea. Yeah, but I do really like that it's, like, so simple. You get discipline, you get -1 to hit, you get -1 to win if you boost it.
And because it's so universal, there's so many different applications. Probably when I'm playing with it, I will figure out new ways of using it. Like the -1 to hit. Just why do you want to give yourself -1 to hit? Well, here's my Titanopod that doesn't really not need to roll to hit, so I don't really care.
Oh, that's a good point. Yep. Yeah.
Like I think that's, for example, a very interesting unit already to use it on, to just boost your discipline by 2 points.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern about the Titanopod, is that it didn't seem to. I'd be curious. I was worried it's going to break from combat a lot.
Also, one of our concerns, probably.
Yeah. Like I almost thought it could have like something like, I don't know if stubborn would be too good, but it almost felt like it needed something like that with such a big health wounds pool.
I mean, if you're looking at a Titanopod, one of the biggest challenges here is that it has access to devices.
Yes.
And the fact that there's a maximum point cap for a single model. And we need to stay under that.
I see.
And that just limits the capabilities we have. I would love to give this model stubborn if we have a chance. I think it would be very fitting, but at the same time, it's a creature that behaves on instinct, and is not really aware probably that it's going into a fight. It's just going to roll, and it's just going to roll over everything that that gets in front of its feet. But if something happens, it definitely might just panic, or if it gets overwhelmed, and it definitely could still break. Yeah, it's you don't want to create like this unkillable brick that's just gonna stick there and
that's fair.
A bunch of wounds and just stomps everything and grinds everything down.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention it. Or I was watching the Cavalier's Tale. He was reviewing the Howder devices and the magic enchantments, and he was talking about how if you put the Lodestone shield on the Titanopod, you do have a humongous 5/8 Aegis 5-up bubble. I mean, 200 millimeters is huge if you just sort of turn it sideways on the back of your line.
I mean, the same applies for the BSB version, right?
Yes, yeah, right. That is a huge BSB. Yeah.
You just get an extension of, what is it, 200 millimeters, so it's about 8 inches.
Yeah, that's
like here's my 26 inches bubble.
Yeah, it's pretty big. That's one of the probably biggest bubbles in the game. Yeah. Where I am looking at the Howder devices, and I feel like they kind of fall into two-ish camps, or really maybe There's all the shooting Howder devices, which all look really excellent, and then there's the kind of upgrades that either affect magic, or there's the 5-up Aegis or the Battle Stainer Bear, and a lot of these were sort of previous upgrades on different units that now can be more sort of widely dispersed throughout the army. So yeah, is there anything else you want to say about the Howder devices? Any other comments? I saw one of the community engagement members already commented on the fact that It sounds like there's already going to be some changes to maybe some of the shooting caps on some of the devices.
Yeah, so I don't know which version you're having. If there's no caps on the magnetic bow
Yeah.
and the Engine of the Ancients, there's going to be a 0 to 3 cap on the Great Bow and a 0 to 1 on the engine.
Yep.
Because that was simply a layout error.
Okay.
Um, because obviously, if we're going to be able to spam so many Great Bows in an army, you could technically bring 7, I believe.
Yeah, I think
That
somebody
would have
said
been
8.
a bit too much.
That's so many bolt throwers.
Or
Okay.
just 7 Engine of the Ancients, it would just be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, I think generally, I think the fights are quite straightforward.
Yes. Hmm.
It's not that much special. I think that the only thing I might be able to touch is like the Loathsome Shield. Really deliberately, we moved away here from the permanent Aegis that the current
Mm.
Ancient of the Aegis has, because honestly, the reason why people pay 100 points for it currently is just for the 5 of Aegis for
Just for the
everything.
5 pages.
Um,
Yeah.
and
The other abilities are almost very secondary.
Yeah, exactly. And Aegis saves is something we generally want to prevent within the
Hmm.
army. It's
I
also why
noticed
you,
that.
for example, see the Anrarch, the Fortitudes rather than the Aegis save,
I
because
noticed
Aegis
that.
save generally are godly saves or
Hmm.
some kind of a divine thing, which is exactly what Lizardmen or Saurian Ancients don't really believe in. They are atheists. They
Hmm.
don't have a belief, so there's no source
Yeah.
for them to for an Aegis to appear from.
Yep.
The only reason why we use an Aegis here is because it's the only rule that really represents what it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I saw that too. I'm looking at the magic enchantments, and yeah, you've got the vital essence gives you a fortitude. The starfall scales prevents flaming attacks, which is pretty big. Allows you to put fortitudes on those kind of big models or combine those two items.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I felt like the special items, magic enchantments, were also very streamlined. A lot of things came over, a couple sort of new additions. The Stampede Resonator Crystal is pretty cool. Being able to change your stomps into your impact hits, essentially, it's very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think there's some really strong combinations here which are possible, especially on the magic side of
Hmm.
things, which is something to keep an eye on.
Hmm.
Um, I think as well the ancient plaque is really, really strong.
Yeah, I played it. I thought it
Um,
was awesome.
but yeah, I think it's not broken for the time being, but
Hmm.
it might as well be when people get playing and going.
Hmm. Yeah, somebody also in the community engagement saw the Skeptic Steel and thought that was both outrageously cheap and maybe a little too powerful. But then again, he plays KOE regularly, um, and
Yeah,
KOE likes their Aegis saves, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think that is one of the interesting things, something we discussed heavily. Like, I don't think KOE is really the ones who have to care that much. They still have 2+ saves everywhere.
Yep.
I think the ones that have to really be afraid of this is demons.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
the
yeah.
abundance of poison available in this army, combined with ignoring
Mm.
their Aegis saves, is just devastating for greater demons, right?
Yeah, that's a really
Um,
potent combo with the core skink hunters
yeah,
and the poison ability. Oh wow, yeah, that's really scary.
but then thinking about that and looking into, okay, what do we actually have, is just really, okay, this is a banner that's going to be super situational. It's going to be interesting in 1 out of 8 matchups.
Mm. Hmm.
Where KOE is probably an army where it it could matter, obviously, if you
Hmm.
get the right charges. But generally, when playing against KOE, you're not the one picking the fights.
That's a good point.
It's KOE picking the fights,
Yeah.
and basically making these pros and cons. We really felt like, okay, we could at least give it a try. It's probably too situational to be spammed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if it's too good, we just maybe have to take a step back.
Yeah.
But why did we, for example, not go for divine attacks here is very deliberately, again, the same reason why we try to prevent Aegis saves, because there's no source of granting the divine attacks. There's no godly source to grant that to begin with. So it would not make sense from a background point of view.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, that makes me kind of wonder. I'm looking at the Arnor arc. I guess that kind of makes me think divination. Is divination tied to gods, or is, or I guess thaumaturgy is more tied to gods, but divination's
No,
sort of is.
thaumaturgy is the one tied to gods. Divination is we went over this. I don't know the exact details here, but I know it's not tied to
Yeah,
gods.
I guess the
There's
divination
no divine
cosmology.
intervention or
Yeah, have
divine judgment. Um, I think it would be more manipulation of time, kind of
yeah,
essence. It would more fit in that category, I think.
yeah. I could see that. Yeah.
Kind of
Okay.
overlaps with astromancy, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and the Arnor arc had some pretty big changes. Probably one of the more bigger design changes in the whole book, I would think. Right?
Yeah. So here, definitely, like the closely guard is something that people are going to be frowning upon, probably.
Yeah.
But this is purely the fact that NRs within the Saurian community, they are mistrusted.
Yeah.
So nobody likes the N-words, nobody trusts them. They have their own agenda and they don't really care about what the collective thinks. However, they are still part of the society. So you
Yeah.
gotta include them. And when they are your most powerful,
They're the overlords from times past, right?
you cut out a little bit. I missed a few seconds.
Oh, I said they're like the overlords from times past, and they sort of
Yeah,
have
kind of.
misused their power in the past, so they're given a kind of a wide berth and a close
Yeah, I
eye is
mean
kept on them.
they were there, then they disappeared, and then suddenly they were back again. And that really has been some heavy discussions. How are we going to do this? First, it was only Tegu guards, and that just was very, very tough. But it also is why we introduced Danrog Wardens, for example.
Yep.
Because this just allows you to still play them in the way how we're used to, but you have, in some way, still a guarded unit.
Yeah.
Because the profile that's on there is still comparable to either Caimans or Tegu guards. But also opening up with like the ability to join Tegu warriors to we're not forcing a Tegu guard unit onto you.
Yeah, I mean, and you still get stand behind too in any of those units, which is cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think like even the Elder Caimans, I think that could be an interesting unit to guard the Arnor arc. Definitely, I really like the Tegu guard change in general, and Tegu warriors are also very solid too because that's coming out of your core.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I really like him in both design changes, and I still see him as a very useful model. He's a really awesome wizard. I
And
don't.
also some kind of a double-edged sword, especially with the Grasp of the Immortal, where we really deliberately went for, okay, we're going to include this because we wanted to keep it. And then we had the old system where you just had these 200 points of disciplines. And we're like, okay, so whatever we're going to do, this one is going to be 140 points. Maybe it's going to be even more expensive, depending on the combination you make. And it's just going to...
It's so good. Yeah.
Even for 200 points, you might want to take it.
Yeah.
And then we felt like, okay, but there's some kind of a backdraw with this whole Anarch. We can just include it and make it kind of a choice. So either you have to channel or you have plus to cast. So there's like a real choice you're gonna make. And it prevents the fact that it's auto include on the disciplines and always takes the points away there.
Yep.
So we just include it in it instead.
Yeah. No, I think that was a wise move.
A nice change. And also and I think this is the mainly community driven as well. Like my background is I came from the Saurian Ancients ACS before joining the team. And my goal there was as well, like we should really listen to the community here, and really listen and try to see if we can implement some of their ideas. And the loss of pyromancy was really something that a lot of people were impacted about.
I mean, that
And
was the build, right? Pyromancy,
exactly,
alchemy, Sun Tablet, Essence of the Free Mind.
yeah.
That was the
So now we
build.
can have both.
Yes, I thought it was really cool. I played it. I went in my playtesting game, and I actually never took any damage from it too because the pyromancy spells were like such a must stop for my opponent. I think I got to cast one Pyroclastic Flow, um, and actually no, that one got stopped. Yeah, they pretty much all kept getting stopped because
Yeah,
my opponent was like, I don't want to lose these models, or I can't let
yeah,
flaming swords go through. But then I feel like I was playing Druidism and Pyromancy, so I was getting these incredible buffs off for regrowing units. So
yeah.
yeah, I thought I thought it was a good way to include it. Give again
I
some of
think
that.
as well even the whole philosophy of the hit, like it gave us a good
Yes.
joke within the team as well, because
Yeah.
the running name from this for this discipline or mastery was
Mm-hmm.
Bad Frog,
Bad frog.
and the whole reason it gets a strength 5 AP 10 is because the Tegu guard is going to hit it with a stick.
Oh, that's great.
That's
That's
really the
funny.
whole reason why you get the
That's
hit,
funny.
because they don't like it.
Because I
They're like,
noticed at first I was like, oh man, this it stinks. It's like I thought it was a flaming hit at first, and I saw he had a fortitude. So at first I thought, oh, that sucks. Like you have a fortitude, you get hit by a flaming thing, but then I realized, oh, it's not flaming. It's just a strength 5 AP 10 hit. So it's like, okay, you still get a fortitude. It's only when you're gonna 3-up. I'm like,
yeah,
that's and like especially I'm thinking like I'm Druidism. Like the time I take a wound, I should be able to stick it back on me, at some
yeah,
point. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, as I said, that's really the whole reason why there's a hit. It's really, there's an idea behind it,
Hmm.
which is, I think, just a fun thing to touch.
Any interesting Cayman master builds?
Yeah, just vanilla. I mean, the model doesn't need that much.
He really
You
doesn't,
don't
does
need
he?
any weapon enchantments. I mean, the running ideas have been just put Death Cheater on him and go
Hmm.
for a 2 4 up.
Yeah.
Go for Talisman of Shielding, Crown of Autocracy, Potion of Swiftness, or something.
Hmm.
Um, just 2 builds out top of my head where you basically gain a decent armor save, special save, maybe minimize discipline,
Mm. Yeah.
and just pick the nice fights, use him as a cowboy.
Hmm. Oh, because he's solitary, so he's never
Yeah,
in. Oh yeah, he's never in a unit. Oh, that's
yeah,
interesting. So he is
yeah,
just a straight cowboy. Yeah.
yeah,
Huh. Interesting.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah, he's a Ronin, right?
Yeah, and this is the whole thing that we try to do as well with the young Cayman, elder Cayman, and the Cayman
Yeah.
Masters, to give the Cayman more of an identity within the book.
Hmm.
Because Caymans have been these just brutes. They have a great weapon, they have a halberd, they hit
Yeah, a bigger
opponents.
lizard.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
But within the background, there was already this explanation of the Caymans being more solitary creatures, poets.
Hmm.
Whereas it immediately gets these weird ideas of, okay, so they're basically hippies and they're smoking pot, and
Hmm.
like all the crazy things have been coming by, and
Hmm.
giving this model solitary was just, I think, the most fitting. Really making him a cowboy, just like like a mammoth hunter for the ogre kingdoms.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then I mean the Tegu veteran, he's pretty much still has all the options afforded to him. He's a little bit weaker, right, in terms of offensive skill
Yeah,
and
it's kind of a
defensive skill.
blend.
Yeah,
It's
that's
kind
what
of
I
a
thought
blend between
too.
both warlord and, like, the 5 attacks are there,
Hmm.
but it's less offensive skill, defensive skill. Generally, you're gonna see here as well. Agility has been reduced
Mm.
on quite a few entries,
Yeah.
to really um, like really define a weakness of the army.
Hmm.
Um, So yeah, that's why he ended up like quite a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
But you get a quite a nice budget Alpha Carnosaur built now as well,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
if you
he's
want
got a
to.
lot of options on foot
Yeah,
on the Raptor or on the Carnosaurus. So, and then the same thing with the Skink too. The Skink seems like he's just got a lot of different options available to him in terms of he can go on a monster, he can go on a pterodon. He's good on foot for some more shooting. He seems like a all sorts of fun little things you can do with him.
exactly. I think this one is, in terms of synergy, really the entry that is one of the most versatile.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many interesting things you can do. You can play him as a support with the magnetic short bows. You can create a big skink unit that you're just vanguarding forward and again give faint flight.
Yeah,
You
I
can
just.
combine the faint flight even with the hunters and the gorillas to
Mm,
really get this shoot, march forward,
mm.
flee, and rally. And
Yeah, I just noticed that, like, yeah, the Master Strategist applies to Skink Wars. That's pretty
yeah,
big. You can Vanguard a core unit like that. Uh,
yeah, 40 skinks with spears, poison.
and,
Or
uh,
no,
and
no, no, you don't have the
and
proper
you'd
poison
you'd be able
damage.
to
There's only
Vanguard
nine
anything that
SRGs
it's
for that.
combined with too, right? Like if you had if you had one of the um, Thyroscutuses in it, right? That would Vanguard as well, right?
No, no, yeah, no,
Oh, that
because
one. Okay.
and consisting entirely of skink warriors, hunters, and gorillas.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, that's probably wise. I
Yeah,
thought that seems.
yeah, like that's why it doesn't add up with poison. But
Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, who knows in the future?
Yeah, and the mounts, all the mounts haven't really changed all that much, except
No, I think
except the new
the
rules on
really
the things.
the new one is really the Sky Tyrant.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, he's a 50 by 75. That's interesting. That's
Yeah,
different.
yeah. Yeah, we started with the gigantic flyer, and then we basically
Hmm.
went over the guidelines again and evaluated that. And like flying gigantic creatures weren't really a thing of certain
Yeah.
ancients. So we went back a little bit, went more to a manticore kind of
Mm.
idea.
Hmm.
Um, the main inspiration for this is like has been mentioned in the spoilers as well. This is like the Avatar, the Great Leonoptrix
That's kind of what I was thinking.
dimension
Yeah, it kind of has that.
creation.
It kind of has that vibe. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool though. I mean,
yeah,
it's a decent looking mount, and for definitely for a skink, it's got some attacks. It's pretty fast. It's yeah, got a lot of.
yeah. I think my favorite, like the favorite ideas we've had is to just give him Essence of Mithril
Mm,
and give him a halberd, let him be plain, let him be a carry for the infiltrator to get an extra token,
yep.
and fly around with 7 strengths, 5 AP2 attacks.
Yeah, that's not bad. I'm sure it's not
Yeah,
even that expensive too. What is that? The
280,
75.
280, 290, I think.
Yeah, that's not all that much for a
Yeah,
cowboy. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Alpha Colonel looks great. The Torosaur looks great. It's cool that you can the Torosaur character mount can still take a Howdah device. That's really nice too. Still.
Yeah, it's really the only way how you can get a character BSB.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's yeah.
And and this actually works as well in a way that because the model becomes the BSB, you
Hmm.
can take magical banner enchantments. So you can technically play double Aether Icon on the Taurus or BSB captain or
Oh,
weapon.
okay. Interesting.
Um, so that's really the only way how you can make that work.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah. Well, but it's nice that there's an option kind of for that
yeah,
kind of build.
and it's been a model that's been played quite a bit before.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad thing that it's possible.
Hmm.
It's something we are aware of. We try to prevent these kind of characters that have this interaction with the army, but at the same time, it's not really the character that does it. It's still the monster that bears is the bearer of the device
Yeah.
that makes an 18-inch. So I don't think it removes the feeling of the concept.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I mean, I've always liked the skink veteran on a Torosaur BSB kind of build too. So
Yeah,
I think it's great it's still there.
yeah.
Core seems like it has a lot of different variety now in terms of you have what 1, 2, 3, 4 units, but with
Five.
those
The
Oh,
Raptors as
five with the
well.
Raptors. That's true. That's true. But even within those five, it feels like there's a lot of different ways you can play all these units now.
Yeah.
I played a Cayman Warrior unit on its own and thought it was very solid on its own. I just took them with Tooth and Claw because I liked the +1 to hit, and I thought Lethal Strike was always pretty decent. Um, but I mean, you could really run a lot of skinks. You could run small skink bunkers. You could run a big unit of Tegu Warrior. I mean, 35 Tegu Warriors is that's a big unit still that you can still get out of your core.
Yeah, I think 5 times 15 with a champion is probably about the same as minimum core.
Mm-hmm.
Something around that size at least.
Yeah,
Which is just a lot of Tego.
yeah, it is a lot of
And I
Tegu
mean,
Warriors.
they're running around with parry in that case as well. They run
Mm-hmm.
around with +1 to hit against highly armored things, which
Yep.
is, and they still have their 2 attacks. So
Yeah, still two strength 4 AP1 attacks.
I
Yeah.
think the most interesting thing to touch here is like the skink hunters, having this core unit, more like troop units in core. It will be really interesting to see how effective this unit is.
Mm-hmm.
Really something to keep an eye on because you don't want this to be too cheap. It's really dangerous to have this kind of unit in core.
Yeah.
And the Caymans.
Mm-hmm.
This is there's been some arguments here back and forth because certain ancients shouldn't be like overcounts spamming huge units of large infantry.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
if you allow too many Caymans in core, you're simply going to end up with like you can make an all Cayman army, which is not really the idea of the army. Any army should consist of Tegu warriors, Skink warriors, and Caymans.
Yeah.
It should be possible. It's possible to build an army with only Tegu or only Skinks if you really want to.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the best style you can play. The best way to play the army should be mixed arms.
Mixed arms. Interesting.
In the sense of Caymans, Tegu, and
Caymans,
Skinks
Skinks, and
combined.
Tegu. Yeah, I didn't even recognize that there was an 8-0 model limit on the Cayman Warriors. So that is interesting.
Yeah.
And I think they thought that through very well to encourage multiple units. Which I didn't take any Tegu Warriors. I had some at first, and then I decided I just wanted a Skink Warriors because I wanted the healing waters, and I felt they were just a little bit cheaper. And I wanted a big unit of Cayman Warriors just run solo. But yeah, it is interesting how many different options there are really to go with.
Yeah.
And then same thing in special is also very packed full of some excellent units, and then you got elders. I thought it was awesome. You have the Thioscutus herd in special, which it only increases the amount of monsters you're going to get. Raptor riders are awesome. The Raptor pack I think is very useful, both as just like a chaffish kind of unit you can get from special into core, but then also with ambush rule. The breath weapon's nice.
And don't underestimate him as a combat unit.
No. I mean, it's strength 4 AP 2 attacks from 2 from each Raptor. Yeah.
And agility 4 is compared to the rest of the army really the fastest entry I think in the book.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point.
I've been in playtesting really surprised by these units. Where you're like, okay, this is just a cheap unit from core. It's just going to charge me. What can possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Oh well, it's got a lot of strength 4 AP too, and it's going fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the Tegu guards, I liked the clubs that they used to have, but I think Halberds agree up and just makes a lot more sense and is a lot kind of easier.
Yeah, that's the main reason. Because we have a very bloated armory section already.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's not really a reason to defer too much from the rules. Of course, you're going to lose a point of armor in combat.
Yep.
You're going to get a point of AP back compared to the current unit. You can run them with parry if you want to. And the containment field is, I think, pretty decent.
I think it's a great special rule. Yeah.
Again, here, something to keep an eye on. Demons are not going to like this.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just, I think, like the running team, like demons generally probably won't like playing Saurians.
Yeah, which is kind of a bit of a legacy thing too, but also I think is kind of is present in the Ninth Age fluff with the different when the ages came out, right?
Could be. I'm not too well versed in the
Okay.
Ninth Age background, but yeah, I think that it doesn't sound unfamiliar now you're mentioning it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, they do have some. Yeah, Tegu Mystics are a new unit, a little light troops Tegu unit with
Yeah.
+1 to wound, um, battle focus against standard or battle focus all the time, but +1 against standard height things. They also got a conclave.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I think one of the best sections of the book is definitely the Magnasauria. Um, the Guerrilla Warriors. I actually reviewed that section, or it comes out on Thursday when this is going to come out on September 1st. The Guerrilla Warriors, everything from there looked just about standard, I would say. Slightly good,
It's not that much
yeah,
interesting.
slightly good tweaks, like the Pterodon's got a sweeping attack. But the
Yeah.
Magnasauria, I thought, was incredible upgrades across the board. I mean, Stygiosaurs are scoring. The baby Carnosaur is now just its own little entry that gets to do all sorts of cool things. The Taurosaurus got 3d3 impact hits. The Titanopod is this new, bizarre, cool, humongous base that we had never seen in the game before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Titanopod is going to be really interesting. I think it will definitely raise a few eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
If it's good, if it's not good, if it's too good. I mean, it definitely is one of the most complex entries we have.
Yeah.
Like a lot of special rules. But I really want this model to work out.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a community idea as well.
Oh, to have an even
Like the
bigger
community
Gribbly?
have been asking for this kind of model. There's been various ideas. Is it going to be like can you put skinks on it and transport skinks with it, or what can you do with it? One of the ideas that unfortunately didn't survive onto alpha is that it was that you were able to ambush pterodons from it.
Oh, that's cool. Oh my gosh.
Like a moving eyrie, so you could have like
Yeah.
this gigantic walking eyrie where you have birds or where you can
Yeah, birds are roosting and these pterodons are roosting. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, but I mean, also there, like, what's reasonable within the boundaries of the game,
Yeah.
and it's just very complex.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah.
But yeah, I think Stegosaur pack is very interesting and solid choice. Really nice to have a scoring monster unit.
Yes.
In there.
I didn't even notice that until just like another day ago, and I thought that was really cool. Not only is it just it help you with like the discipline, like in activating the communal bond special rules, but yeah, it really makes this unit incredible in like so many different ways.
Yeah, and the damage output is very decent as well. It's very versatile. Like poison attacks helps against high resilience models. The storms help against infantry.
Yep.
And that's, I think, one of the running themes here on the monsters. We really wanted to make the monsters shine. Like there's this King Rider, but it's basically insignificant. The Carnosaur has a Tiger Rider. You can put a light lamp,
but it's not a. He's not a big deal.
That's not why you take him. Take a model. Same way with the Taurosaur. We streamlined the devastating charge +1 attack and rerollable impact hits just into 3d3.
Yeah, yeah, 3d3 just makes sense, right? Because that's about what you're getting beforehand, but now it can spike and be a little bit higher, a little bit more powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And every monster has its own role like this. And as you said before, like the Tarascutus being like not Magnasauria entry anymore.
Yes,
really helps to
allow
more in this in the book.
And I think that was probably the best one to take out of that section, since the Thyrs.
I never understood why it was there.
Yeah, I mean,
legacy thing.
Yeah, because I mean, it's the most like least offensive monster. It's the one that is more involved in more of the protective aspects, or
Okay.
the how to aspects, and
Yeah.
I think it shines in what it gets to do now, and still can be a
Yeah.
big herd, can still be put in some units.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I think it was
Yeah.
very well done. Yeah, I guess I mean any other kind of last thoughts? I think we did kind of a bit of a fast comb through, but I know
I
there's
think
all sorts of reviews coming out on this book.
I think those are really from a background or like from a design point of view
Hmm.
the biggest things.
Hmm.
Where we yeah, to explain a little bit more in detail where we put a focus. Like we have a few things that we have to keep an eye on, of course.
Yep,
We're never
of
going to get
course.
away from that.
Yep.
I think one of the we as a team all agree that discipline is definitely the thing we have to keep an eye on. How is this
Hmm.
going to affect the different um, play styles? Because we of course have the cloud play style, we have the monster mash play style, and those
Blocky, very
two
blocky playstyle too.
exactly. And the very block play style is definitely going to be fine with the discipline mechanics,
Hmm.
but the issue is going to be with Monster Mash and Cloud because
Hmm.
you have to keep everything within 8 inches. It's going to take a lot of time, and I think that's also something we really try to think about when designing this book is how are the rules interacting with gameplay and how does this affect when you're playing the game? Uh, how much time does it take? All
Hmm.
the time having to measure 8 inch there and there and there and
Yep.
there like that, it might be an issue.
Yeah.
Um, but it's the same as other armies have it, so it could be fine as well.
Yeah.
You got to measure your general anyway, so like there's a lot of parameters here that we try to think of, and it's not only okay, it should be a good cool rule, it should be really good, or it should be really bad, or that's not always the reason why we make certain decisions.
Yep.
And I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind. It's not only about those things, it's really about the whole experience. That it should be
Yes.
fun for both me, but also you as the opponent who's playing against it. It shouldn't be feel overwhelming.
Yeah, you don't
And
want the dinosaurs aren't coming out and they're just gonna stomp all over town.
yeah,
But we want things to be fun and balanced and
yeah,
be interesting too. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
well, I mean, I would say, hat off to you. I think the lab team has done an excellent job with this first alpha, and always knowing, we are an alpha. Things will change. Things will get tweaked. Points will change. Things are still going to be worked upon. But I think, the foundation, I think, is very solid right now.
I think so too. It took a while for us to get ready, but it took deliberately a few steps back to really rethink a few details.
Hmm.
And that brought us to the point where we are now, that we are quite confident that um, it's going to be a good alpha and we get the
Hmm.
feedback that we want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Marcel, I just want to say, thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me and share all these important insights from the lab.
Yeah,
And
no worries.
and because I imagine you came from the Soaring Ancients, so you've been playing Soaring Ancients a long time.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
I've been. This is my. I started with this sixth edition.
Oh wow. Okay.
Honestly, so I've seen a few different versions
Yeah.
of Warhammer, and
Hmm.
I've been here since I think almost the beginning
Yeah.
of the Ninth Age project. So I've seen a few different iterations there as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm really excited about the release, and I really hope everyone else is
Yeah.
as we are.
Well, before you go, you got about 2 minutes. What's your dream army list?
My dream army list. Um, Before I started with this book, I really thought this would be I want to play three Carnosaurs. But
Mm-hmm.
now the book is done, I'm really, really excited to play Stegosaurus.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is my personal favorite. I remember a few other members of the team also are really a fan of the entry. Um, and I also I really like playing with an Anarch magic, some
Mm-hmm.
stable warriors with core with Tarascudas. to give them parry spears. It's a really solid combination.
Yes, it is.
Really strong combination to recommend for people to come out or test out is to combine it with alchemy, pyromancy, and then the Deathstalker warlord on foot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really painful combination with the rerolls and lethal strikes on multi-wounds on 5s.
Oh yeah, that seems tough. That seems like something you had to really fight against.
I think that's probably like a nice solid mixed arm with some dinosaurs. And
yeah. Oh, very nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, Marcel, once again, thank you. And everyone, check out the book. It's coming out today, September 1st, and the lab teams poured their hearts out into this, and I think we've got a really good start for this lab book. All right. Well, cheers, everybody, and take care.
Take care.